Nix system was first discovered, the United Empire of Earth, the UEE, came out and did scans and kind of found out that the system wasn't really worth settling. The planets were too hard to terraform, the resources were too tough to get, so they opened it up. And one company saw an opportunity where the UEE did, making a very slim margin by the sheer quantity of resources they were pulling out. Who were a group of revolutionaries who were trying to overthrow the dictatorship of the Messer regime that was going on in the empire at the time.
So they went to the Nix system and established what became known as Levski. They wanted to make it everything that the UEE wasn't at this time.
They set up what they saw as their ideal society, where everyone's voices would be heard, where everyone would be equal. So Nix today is kind of at an interesting point in its history.
Making a star system is
So the Nix system is a remote system where people want to go and live free outside of the...
The Pyrostar is quite a warm star. Stanton star is quite neutral. And the Nix is a little bit cooler. The system, and it has points of light scattered around it, and those points of light in this gas cloud is really, really hazy. So because Nix is bordering Vandal space, it was important that we have a gap in the Nix gas cloud where you could sort of just, in between the clouds, see a piece of the Vandal space. It feels so close that it's even like protruding some red light. Place more dangerous POIs. So if you point your ship in the direction of it, you should find, as we build it out, that you will be in more and more danger. To give more atmosphere, I was testing out adding some sort of space snowflakes, essentially. So when you look towards the sun, you can sort of see that sort of like sparkle. But then when you look away from the sun, you'll see the reflections and sort of like little glints of light. For the jump points in Nix, we'll have 2 bypassing Castra temporarily.
Hey. Glacian Belt is a huge asteroid belt that is in sort of the middle of the system.
And the gas clouds, and it's combining them to make something completely new that we've just not seen before.
It's full of resources that are still left unharvested because it's kind of a tricky spot for mining. It's not the easiest place to go, but that means that there's still a lot of opportunity for independent miners to go out there.
So the rocks in Nix are very different from those in the Pyro and the Stanton.
One of the big differences too is all of that extra added movement that just adds a little bit of extra flair.
It's also a good hiding spot for people who are trying to elude capture, maybe set up ambushes, that type of stuff.
Always feel
Delamar is a very large asteroid in the Glacian Belt that QV Planet Services had built a mining base on.
Levski is our first and biggest social outpost for Nix.
It's kind of like the place where you stop before you do your panning. So it's kind of a San Francisco before you go out to the gold rush.
It's going to be the central hub for trade and hauling and all of the commerce within Nix and also from Nix to other systems. But it does have a CD underlayer to it.
over the years, you're sort of improving the generation method of those asteroids to culminate towards this specific point to make. When you fly towards the Levski, you see this huge gas ring around it. It's scattered small, mid-sized pieces of the asteroids.
As you approach you'll initially see a very dramatic borehole that goes all the way through the asteroid. You'll also see growing out from there and alongside Levski, there will be landing pads along what I'd call the spine. Lots of industrial pipes and transport systems to bring out the refined mining materials when it was a mining station.
Before we were using.
If we took the whole shot of the asteroid, you will see that there is an area to fly underneath. We plan on bringing in hull C gameplay, so this is exterior cargo elevators, so as a team you will be able to load and unload cargo.
There's a lot more movement on the exterior, such as the cargo trains going around tracks. It's now going to be fully EVA-able. There will be walkways around the main landing zone to walk on using gravity plates, but you can drift off and kind of go wherever you want. They can explore fully.
Unlike
But we've had Levski before, and so.
Gracing the main lobby of Levski is a large statue of Anthony Tanaka, who was a child worker.
And was being worked to death, all of them were. And Anthony Tanaka just had a break and just said no, and stood up against the foremen, the supervisors, the managers, the guards, and was killed for it. And so he became a sort of a figurehead.
So if you take the elevator up to the top deck, you'll see the top view and the cargo area as well. So you can go through the cargo shop. You've got your normal kind of cargo needs. You'll have ability to trade and buy your tractor beam and other gear that you need. So if you were to die in the Nix system, then one of the places you might come out from is the hospital in Levski, which is called the Mercy Hospital.
So Mercy Hospital is just basically, it's a local med station for all the residents of Levski, anybody traveling through the system. Again, they're trying to provide as good medical help for people as they can.
when and then you will take that transit to the HAB room. So within that room will be pods.
And that's where the original miners would have lived. They're not the nicest and they're a bit messy, but if you head down to the lower view deck, you'll go through into the Grand Barter, which is your main social and commercial area of Levski.
This is where you will see more embedded shops.
And that includes things like Corderies, which is your armor shop, and also conscientious objects, which is for weapons. There's also one of my favorite places, Café Musée, which is where you can go down into some of the more rocky depths and grab yourself a drink. And if you explore a bit more around the Grand Barter, there's other routes around and little side passages. There's another
Teach a Ship Shop is basically where you would go if you were looking to pick up a used ship, buy some ship parts, fix up your old ship, find some new stuff.
Another new area, as well as the cargo shop that we've added, is the refinery deck for Levski. That's where you can take your processed goods, not just from Levski, but from the rest of the Nix system, and refine and sell those goods there. As a lot of the content in the next coming releases for Nix is going to be mining related. So it's super important that Levski. So we're really happy to bring Levski back into the game. It's been gone for quite a few years now.
I think it really provided a unique environment of it's run down, but the people who live there love it and are working their hardest to make it a great place to live.
This is a location that has a lot of nostalgia for you guys, and we don't want this just to be a re-release. We do want you to go, wow.
It's not going to be as complete as Pyro was when it first came out, but it's going to be our first iteration.
science run amok storyline, we had revealed that ASD had been procuring sort of very black market illegal stuff in order to conduct their experiments. So this mission is basically going to be...
So the Navy contracts with them a lot for doing various kind of military operations that they don't want to handle themselves. We didn't want players to be working directly. I guess as a player, when you can think about like, oh, where am I going to be doing missions that are capital ship battles or large fleet scale stuff or military operations, that's all going to come from Intersect Defense Solutions. Intersect have discovered.
So when you come out of Quantum and you start and slowly the station will reveal itself. Now this is an old QV logistics station. It's pretty beat up, it's pretty derelict, but there's some points of interest that you'll spot as you go through. This architectural design found its way over to the Nix system as the system was being established, but you'll also see some additional design cues that you'll notice there's a Polaris near the main hub. It's not a normal Polaris. It's damaged, it's broken, it's not a standard corporate Polaris. So at this point, away from the Polaris, you'll see struts leading to asteroid bases. Now these asteroid bases are locked, so you don't know exactly what's inside just yet.
First time.
Nomadic, very, very, very violent spacefaring race.
They've been striking out against outposts and such in the Nix system. They don't really know what they want, don't know why they're doing it, but it seems like whoever's running the station.
Vandal raiding parties have been arriving in the system, and they're unaffiliated to any clan. There's small groups coming in and picking at them. But as time goes on, those raids have
Glaives and blades that we all know and hate, and a new craft for the PU, the Vandal Stinger. This will be the first time since the PU launch that you'll be able to... After you fight off the Vandal...
What's happening here, why these QV stations have come back online.
You dock your ship, you board the station, and it turns out
the player will be immediately ambushed.
Of course, it's not going to be easy because the people that are inhabiting the station are going to fight you every step of the way.
The fight will be challenging, but this definitely will be the warm-up. What exactly is going on there, who these new people are. They'll be in unfamiliar armor, they'll be wielding in a new place, in a new territory, fighting a new faction.
So after you survive this initial ambush,
to explore the station and collect as much information as you possibly can.
Along the way,
there's asteroid bases nearby with obvious installations there, other forces that the Vandal have been attacking.
This isn't just a one-time event.
I think a heck of a lot of fun.
So this marks a great milestone for us for With Genesis, we've made a complete paradigm shift to how we do things. Biomes are now created based on the physical data sets, with the assets being spawned whenever and wherever the correct criteria is found. So when you see a forest or a meadow, It's no longer because an artist painstakingly crafted it there. It's now because it simply wants to be there. It fits inside our rules. Genesis also ties into our other gameplay systems. Our new planets are built from the information we create for our different datasets, like height maps, humidity, temperature, soil type, soil amounts, geology erosion data, to name but a few. This means you can now tell where to find valuable minerals as the geology looks like it would be suitable for it. Where scree piles exist below sheer cliff faces, and where rocks have broken off over time due to erosion. Of course, these new tools still give us the ability to direct the look and feel we want. The attention to detail from the tallest mountain to the smallest flower is still our core DNA. With Genesis, we can now keep that detail-orientated mindset as we focus on the quality, and it provides the quantity. Now I'm going to hand you over to Will to go deeper into what we have built that allows Genesis to realize our vision. As a reminder, some of the visuals you'll see will evolve and change as we continue our technological development and hone in on the final look for Nyx.
Thanks, Ian. So there are 3 planets in Nyx. Nyx 3 is a gas giant. Nyx 2 is a yellow, toxic, it's got like this high pressure atmosphere. Nyx 1 has got a diverse set of biomes, from weathered rocky mountain ranges to vast sweeping forests and grasslands, and from damp expansive wetlands to claustrophobic festering swamps. These core biome concepts give us a fantastic platform to hone our technology. So, let's approach this planet in much the same way that you, the player, will, from orbit. Ground coloring. That's because the orbit was designed to look like vegetation that we'd place on the surface, and the ground coloring was trying to be a mix of soil, rock, and the organic compound coloring that forms the kind of colors there. Now we author much more of the data in a unified way. When you look at Earth, you see blues and greens for ocean and vegetation, and brown or yellowy tones for sand and soil. We wanted to keep it as simple as that. The same set of textures and data that define the color of the soil, sand, and rock on the ground are used to create the orbital look. We then assess the presence of vegetation and competition between different species on each part of the planet. This creates a far more complete image and allows you to identify features, geologies, and potential points of interest all the way from space. When we approached the surface of the planet, we wanted to start by focusing on just the soil and rock. One of the things that was missing from our terrain previously was simply feature complexity. That layer is called the medium tiles. These are intelligently placed on top of the existing 4-kilometer terrain tiles based on slope, soil type, and other erosion data. And these medium tiles don't just create height changes, and this gives us a whole new level of terrain detail, of scale, and allows us to create far more unique locations across the planet. So now that we've nailed the surface, let's have a look at adding some rocks. We've now got 2 major contributors to the rock content of our planets. Firstly, long-desired feature, cliffs. We are adding large-scale, very detailed to all our cliffs based on the geology at a given location. This adds an exciting new dimension to steep slopes that we simply couldn't get before. The second is a big one for you ground vehicle enthusiasts. Rocks are now found not scattered everywhere, like spilt popcorn at the cinema. Using physical data generated for each large and medium tile, Now rock distribution makes sense and has a physical basis. The rock assets themselves have had a glow up too. We now create rock sets related to a particular geology that look like they originated from the same source. And this ties into how we'll be distributing minables in much more interesting ways too. So now that our base terrain and rock scattering looks good, let's add some vegetations and explore some additional biomes. Nyx 1's forests and grasslands are full of trees, various grass species, rock formations, and they're found in all sorts of elevations like mountain valleys, open plains, and dense meadows. And when we start to add a bit of fresh water, they begin transitioning into more wetland-type biomes. And while forests are super cool, so, how are we making these look so great? Obviously, we've had grass before, but never meadows of it. Because until now, we haven't been able to spawn grass in large enough quantities or effectively represented at distance. So we're stepping up our game in terms of spawning, shaping, and shading grass. Whether it be dense meadows or more complex collections of ground cover like you can see in these wetlands. Now we can finally cover complex terrain shapes with grass and ground cover assets, and as a result they are now gravity aligned, meaning each blade is oriented as you'd expect and not sticking out like before. Next, let's take a look at how we light our grass. Now, as in real life, the shading of a grass blade, or indeed a whole field of grass, is lit very differently to like a flat surface. We now use a solution that shades meadows of grass far more like fur or hair. And this, if you think about it, makes sense. At a distance, a field of grass is far more like a carpet or cloth than a flat surface. This improves how our grass looks from a near perspective, as well as bringing us nicely into how we're solving the distant representation of grass. So, one of our biggest achievements with Genesis is allowing us to build beautiful biomes out of flora and geology assets like a building set. Because we don't hide planetary transitions and allow you to view complex regions from very large distances, there are almost Virtual terrain, or VT for short, is how we now cache and represent our terrain at varying scales. This has been the enabler for all of the lovely advances in terrain complexity and asset spawning we've shown so far. And it's also how we now evaluate and represent vegetation from a distance. When creating some more dramatic rockscapes, those muggy wetlands, or even our festering swamps. So yeah, we didn't forget about the swamps, and they're coming to Nyx 1 as well. Built using the lessons learned and all the technologies we've developed, these swamps now spring into existence from the planetary data. This biome combines all of the elements from the other biomes we've shown you today, from water interaction, denser spawning, unique ground coverage, and I think it creates something really unique.
As you can see, Genesis is now inspiring everyone here to create planets of the quality and believability we've always strived for. Up until now,
these are exactly what they say on the tin. So there'll be high volumes of cargo that kind of fulfill the purpose for the Hull C and the other series of Hull ships. and there'll be a few sort of more direct routes.
So you might pick up some and go through the jump point to Stanton and drop it off there at one of the LEOs.
So if you've never sort of experienced the jump point too, they're no way limited. You can do them in any sort of ship you want, any size of ship. I'll be doing them in my Drake cutter myself, between Stanton and Nyx.
One thing that we're looking to add with these interstellar missions is scripted combat encounters where you can be attacked by NPC ships. Maybe the mission giver has tipped off some pirates who are looking to get a hold of that cargo.
At the start of the show, these were originally industrial facilities breaking apart large asteroids and mining them down. But since they've been mothballed and been left abandoned, so you're going to have to find your way inside and thinking about how do we bring this facility back to life.
One of the main features is the laser head, which will require certain things to get working. It's up to you and your friends to find how to get in.
There'll be a variety of options. Whether you're discovering the bowels of the station and mining your way through long-forgotten tunnels, or you're going through the main laser entrance. Now, as you're traversing through the facility, you'll find the old engine room. Now, there may be ways to bring the facility back to life, kickstart the engines, and bring power to different parts of the facility.
The secondary gameplay loop is FPS combat. You're not there by yourself.
There may be
So you've found these old facilities, you've brought them back to life. You've systematically brought power to various functions of the facility. You've activated the laser. You've fired the laser. You've broken apart the rock. And then you'll be able to fly your ship inside and see what's there. Fine.
I'm really excited about Rockracker because it's a sandbox activity. You can kind of go to these whenever you want to.
This content is for players who enjoy mining, who enjoy exploration, investigation.
It's for people who want a lot of minerals. When crafting comes in, when all the other mechanics and features that we want in the game for 1.0 come in.
We had the Polaris come out, and obviously people have enjoyed playing with that. We snuck the Idris in without none of you expecting it for a while.
The Wolf, obviously a return of Kruger, a completely new aesthetic to the game.
The Wolf was, it was kind of everything we set it out to be, and it revived an old manufacturer. We've not seen anything from a while, so.
The Golem, I think, is just an incredibly well-formed ship in such a small package. It really just shows off that Drake aesthetic, giving you the absolute bare minimum needed.
I think it came out really well. It's kind of hard to pin down a favorite, to be honest, because we've released, a lot of really cool ships.
Anvil is a very military-based brand. Ships designed such as the Hornet and Lightning. Earlier this year, we introduced the Anvil Asgard based on the Valkyrie chassis, which is an extremely popular offering.
The Paladin is a gunship from Anvil Aerospace designed to support ground operations.
Damage.
We don't have a lot of gunships in the game. They're true dedicated gunships. They are quite a tricky archetype to control in game without being too powerful.
Just built purely for battle. It's got lots of armor.
It kind of reminds me of, I guess, like a pit bull. Obviously a very menacing silhouette.
Its stance, it feels like it's coming towards you even when it's just sat still, and I think that's something that...
If what you'll then see is the first of the side turrets. If you notice the canopy, you'll see that there's a fairly thick space between where the glass is and the whole exterior. That's because it has deployable armor, which can come out and give you a little bit more cover while you're actually attacking the target head on. You'll see a rail. Now that rail mounts the main turret of the ship, which is controlled by the co-pilot.
So you've got full 360 coverage underneath, full 360 coverage on top with it. One of the unique things about the Paladin is...
Yep, but with the Paladin, you're all sat together with a nice, cool experience, so you can really feel like you're playing as a group.
You've got the pilot, co-pilot up top, and you've got the gunners underneath, and I think that helps with the intention of what the ship does, because you've got this really nice kind of like gunner viewpoint.
We added a glass floor just to keep the two connected. I think that really helps with the feeling that you're all...
You can still fly it and engage in combat solo.
Obviously not as good as if you have a full crew, but...
As a solo ship, it's pretty capable of doing a variety of missions within Star Citizen. So if you want to run this ship solo, you can take on combat missions that, say, other heavy... Coming aboard the Paladin Armory ready room area, you have a variety of suit lockers and weapon racks in this room. Improvements from the original concept is we've added a small dedicated cargo bay area, allowing you to store actual SCU crates. Forward of that is the route to the lower gunners, and then upstairs you have the bridge area, and then off that central area you have the dual living quarters, one on the left, one on the right, and then at the rear you have the main sort of engineering area where the majority of the components are. You also have a little breakout area with seating, food machine.
I think it's a very cool looking ship. I think we did a really nice job of taking what was there in the concept and adding an extra level of detail and trying to...
military ship. It's really complementary to some of the other ships in the Anvil lineup, so something like the Valkyrie, where you've got this big drop ship, you know, the Paladin's there just to...
And they all kind of work and operate under the same conditions. You know, the pilot, co-pilot, and the two gunners, they're basically all equal.
So that's the Anvil Paladin. Whilst originally a military-built craft, it's the perfect ship for folks on the frontier trying to defend against threats. Xperia are a high-end manufacturer. They specialise in recreating exotic...
Effectively what they're doing is they're remanufacturing them, making them a little bit more suitable for kind of human flight.
The Vanduul are big, scary space aliens. They're like 7-foot-tall, evil war race that sort of take over, steal technology, absorb it. The Stinger as a Vanduul heavy fighter was reserved for their higher tier sort of ace pilots or...
The Stinger is, or I guess, the Scorpius.
It packs a lot of firepower in quite a large frame, so it's a craft. The firepower is almost unrivaled in terms of just both the number and the size of them. So it's there for players who don't want agility. They don't want to be in and out quickly. They want to be there brawling with. One thing Xperia have done differently with the Stinger is...
They heard everyone's complaints about the glaive and blade and have stripped off the original Vanduul weapons to allow customization.
With any of the existing lineup that we have in the game. By doing this, provides greater flexibility to the end user, and this is something Xperia wanted for the civilian market. As the existing size 5 plasma cannons on the Scythe and Glaive, but it is a sort of Gen 2 model. See, they're very much older Vanduul styling. This is much newer Vanduul styling, but underneath it is the...
Our job as the vehicle art team on the PU was to take the Stinger from the squadron team and prepare it for life in the PU. We
have hard surface, kind of rare alloyed kind of wings, and then underneath is real kind of organic structure that kind of webs all of the ship together. You know, it connects the thrusters in, it connects all the kind of underside of the vehicle and pulls the whole ship together.
You can tell it's very different from the Vandal ships that are currently in the PU.
That gives the cockpit quite a unique shape compared to some of our other ships, and also gives the pilot a unique position within the ship and kind of gives great visibility out the front.
Sure.
You're going through a ramp at the rear, and it leads you kind of straight up into the belly of the ship.
There's organic detail, rib cages, kind of strange alien forms.
On entry of the cockpit, the seat kind of comes down towards you, and
you're basically riding into the cockpit. It feels very much like you're being carried.
Prone flying pose that Vandal pilots use.
I'm very happy with the Stinger. I think the team done a really good job of making something that feels different. It feels alien, but it...
Vision from the original Stinger and Vandal ships in Squadron.
We've tried to take a lot of inspiration from movies and other science fiction material, but...
So we have the Paladin for the People's Alliance. We have the Stinger for people that really like Vandal.
So Gray Chowdhury got his start as he was working at a cargo center out in Odin.
So the Shiv,
aeronautics and ship assembly is given free rein to do whatever they want. It's the best of whatever they can find lying around, put together to make something truly unique, wonderful, arguably beautiful.
At first glance at the exterior of the Shiv, I think most people, there's more than a fair proportion of the cutlass visible there, but it's had quite a few changes to it.
As you look a little bit closer, you've got, main thrusters that are from the Valkyrie.
Even the bits that are the top turret, which is now remote, is just this hodgepodge amalgamation with multiple other ships' turrets. And then the changes continue onto the inside where, again, it sort of feels Cutlass-like, but then you'll find there's bits of Crusader ships just integrated into the wall instead of what was there originally.
Gained visually more powerful thrusters. It's gained a really kind of nice set of belly thrusters.
There's loose cables, panels are exposed. If you look...
Yeah, it's one for doing stuff, and then you need a second one to wash your hands.
Ethos of Drake, and moved it down a level, which I think is quite an achievement.
Just look at this thing. How do you even begin to describe the madness that created this?
This is something new and different for Star Citizen.
I think the Shiv is for someone that is looking for something a bit different, a bit away from the norm, that just wants something that...
Like a rustic aesthetic.
It's a fun ship, but it's also really strong, to be honest. And
I'm happy with the 3 ship offerings. They are obviously very combat heavy.
There's something we wouldn't normally...
Rocket launcher, the LMG, and Space AK.
I think this is the one that not only is it's a fun rifle that basically fires energy and ballistic. So your first shot will be your ballistic, your second shot will be the energy. You'll see on the top of the art, there is a bolt that goes off with the ballistic shot, but it does not go off with the energy shot. And that is just a really fun way of making a weapon work in kind of a scrappy. The LMG, this thing is a really fun.
It will bring the 50 cal, and the only other weapons that have this right now in the verse are the Bearing sniper rifle and the Coda.
Honestly, if you even get hit by one, you just instant tier 1 injury, back to medical. Give me a scrap together box that fires the biggest thing you can possibly find.
It will be 3 grenades straight together that you pull into the tube. And
it's also going to have a lot of spread. So essentially, you're going to have to get very close with your launcher.
We don't have anything like this in the verse, and...
In a hand, and it worked. So we've got some really cool binoculars coming that allow you to spot people from distances.
Thanks, Alexei and Zach. That's the end of this segment for this year.
The first version of crafting is going to be quite small in scale.
The first version is going to be primarily FPS items that you can craft, weapons and armor. For Star Citizen, crafting is our primary progression mechanic. Star Citizen isn't your standard MMO. We don't have levels. We have ships, those vehicles, the armor and weapons. That's how you progress in Star Citizen. Crafting isn't just a progression mechanic for creating new game. The materials that you collect, how you refine them, quality matters.
It'll be somewhat random, potentially weighted on the location of the material. Some will have a higher chance of higher quality. The fabricator, you can use them to craft, and the different attributes will be increased based on the quality of the materials you use. It's not just stats for the item that you desire, and it's not just mining, it's essentially every resource we can get our hands on.
To support the resources that you're collecting, you can see what you have, you can order it better, you can understand what you have in your inventory.
Which you can then take to your crafting machine and start making your personal items. Then you can put them together on the item fabricator. This will be pretty much what we showed in last year's CitizenCon with the UI letting you item. Once you're happy with what you see on the preview, you'll be able to click to craft and it'll get queued up and your result will be produced sometime later. You'll be able to get the new crafting machine from shops in most landing zones. You'll be able to bring it up on your freight elevator and use it in your personal hangar, or tractor beam it around and stick it on a ship if you want to use it from there.
But the vast majority of them will be earned through missions, and then you can use that blueprint to craft the item that it is that you've got the blueprint for. So it should be a good reason to go and test all the different various missions in the game.
The advantage of crafting your own items is that they'll be better than anything that you could buy from shops. You'll be able to increase and improve item stats that are relevant to your gameplay. Maybe a gun will shoot faster, maybe it'll do some more damage, or your armor will have greater resistances against environmental effects or incoming fire. You might be wondering...
So, that's one way. We're bringing instancing to Star Citizen in 2026. So if you've played any content in 2025 in Star Citizen, you know that most of these areas were in actual PvP zones where other players could interfere. But like most MMOs, a good balance between a dangerous overworld and a protected instances is needed. Right now, we don't have this ability, and this is something we really need in order to give you a sense of progression that is to a tunable amount of groups, so the difficulty matches the group size. There's a beginning and an end. It doesn't mean that that doesn't fit, meaning getting to the instance is dangerous, exiting the instance is dangerous. But at least when you're playing the content, we can actually make something that's curated for one experience. Instancing is really an evolution over static to dynamic meshing. We want your instances to be as seamless as your instance hangars. You exit the elevator, you're inside the instance. A gateway opens, you cross that gateway, you're now into your instances. Could be also a quantum jump into an instance that you don't even see. The transition is just like a dynamic mesh transition. And so throughout the universe, we will be able to add these areas that are open or closed instances that allow you.
Siege of Arzen was an event we did previously, which created a gameplay scenario where the player had to run through and progress through contested islands of Arzen and modify it and make it better for you in a small group to work through that activity.
Taken over sort of a cluster of floating platforms in Arzen.
And you are there to organization and take back control. So in our current thinking, Siege of Arzen is the fire team. So you, your friends, or your org will go in, you'll all have sort of dedicated roles. Some of you might be the tank who brings in the heavy weapons and sort of pulls the fire. Some of you might sit at the back and be the sniper and pick people off who are a bit further to make the advance easier. Some of you will be the medic who sole job is going to be revive and look after the rest of your team and the health of them. And some of you will be the people who push for the objectives to try and get sort of most of the mission done. The event was designed for about 15 to 30 people, but when we released it, we fixed the problem with, and with that we also upped the player count to 100, so when it first debuted, it was already too full for what it was designed for.
A fantastic addition back into the PU.
So imagine if Siege was a instance that you could go in and play solo, or if it was a public event that you could go with your friends, or you could join up with random players on the server.
I'm excited, to say the least, to bring back Siege of Orison to Star Citizen and to sort of have it be one of the first tests that we have for instancing and really get it back to sort of a core experience point where it should be. So while
So inside the facility, you'll find huge vaporization chambers, old processing plants, industrial tunnels, and eventually into the old turbines, which are still pumping heat into the old rock.
So this is the true history of Levski. This is a place where you won't see in Lorville, you won't see Night 18 or the other landing zone. It's the pure basis of Levski.
Not everybody has what it takes to come down there and do the job that needs to be done.
All of your sewage systems have stopped working. Everything's going to quite literally. And so the player is tasked with their group, most likely, to go into there, take out the outlaws and get the facility working again. It still works in Levski, but you know, they have like maybe polluted air because it's not being cleared properly. It's like a free-layered system where there's 3 chapters.
This will be mission-driven and repeatable. Everything from mining to salvage to combat to investigation, a variety of roles. Narratively, it's a real sandbox. Every progression you do will unlock a new area that will link back to previous areas, complexifying the play space.
We've an ability to jump through them faster and faster times as well.
So
you will have this big asteroid, kind of broken asteroid, and on this you will have this space where you will find 3 big arms. You will see in the middle, you will have this big energy core. Everything here has a purpose. It's not just for the show, just something nice to see.
You'll see a People's Alliance-owned Idris that's just on the outside, and it's going to be getting harassed by this unknown faction that you have met before.
So your first objective here is to clear out the ships. There'll be waves of these ships, so this is where you want your light or your medium or your heavy fighters, whichever playstyle you prefer.
So while one part of your group is dealing with the fighters, now it's time to shoot.
Somehow they've incorporated Vanduul capital ship killing turrets. These turrets ignore small fighters, and they have the firepower to destroy even the biggest capital ships.
Your Polaris and your Idrium.
You have to send out your best pilots to navigate the superstructure and take down anything that may damage your bigger ships. So at this point you're thinking, destroy the turrets. but it's not that easy. This turret has shields that you've never seen before. It won't take eyes.
So the exterior has a number of power relays that are holding the doors closed.
So ships with explosive or ballistic ordnance will be needed here. That's torpedo ships like your Retaliator or Gladiator, or even another fighter with ballistics loadout. That's going to take you a while.
Once the power relays have been taken down, the station opens up.
So as you enter the structure, there's 3 arms to the station that have these trenches. You'll fly into one, and then there'll be a core in the center, and then you'll move out another trench. At this point, the core is still protected, so these are essentially strafing runs.
There are objects to avoid. You're going to have to be able to dodge. You're going to have to move quickly. You need an agile ship.
Because the shield generator that you're targeting is emitting lots of distortion damage.
So once the cooling units are out, that exposes the core to overheat, which means that you can attack it from the inside and also from exhaust ports on the outside of the station. This core is armored and just takes a whole lot of damage. Once the power core goes down, the turrets come down, and then the capital ships can get closer. Why is that important? Because during all of this, you spend a lot of ammo and munitions and ballistics, and you're going to want to top up.
You're going to be able to land in the hangar of select ships and be able to use the same interface as you are right now at stations to refuel and rearm.
It's specifically for ships like the Idris and the Polaris and other ships that are designed to have other ships land inside them. If you're not bringing your own Idris, the People's Alliance has an Idris there that storm allow you to set back up and head back out.
And it's a good thing that you've rearmed and refueled too, because now another group of ships is coming to attack the People's Alliance Idris. So while the fighters are protecting the Idris, what's happening at the station? Well, that's where the dropships come in.
Now you've got to take a fire team in. You've got to land, you've got to fight through an onslaught of FPS enemies that belong to this unknown faction, and you've got to open a hangar door which will allow you to release captives from the station. After you've opened the door, safety.
So at this point, all of this sounds pretty simple.
So up until this point, it's just been you versus the enemies in the station. But the enemies in the station have their own enemies.
The Vanduul neighbors who really don't like these guys for some reason.
When you